Hello, everybody. Welcome here in our class in oral communication. But before anything else, let me deliver the purpose and the intention of this video. During our first meeting, I had mentioned that every time I have the conflict of a schedule or even I have my personal leave of absence, I need to still find time and alternative to still deliver the lesson, and this is that alternative. I'm hoping that even this is just only a recorded video lesson, you still find time and take this seriously because at the end of the day, it is all for you and this is an avenue for your learning. And I'm expecting that you as a senior high school student, you are responsible enough to still manage and utilize our time to watch and listen to this video because right after this lesson, next meeting, we will be having our first assessment quiz. This lesson is a continuation of our previous topic that being covered last week. And in order for us to have a clear bridge and to link our prior knowledge to the new lessons that we will be covering, we need to have a quick review to our previous lesson. So last week, we discussed about the process of communication, and this is the process of communication. You can see that there is the sender who encode the message. We have the channel, the means of communication. We have the receiver who decode the message. We also see that there is a feedback. A feedback is our response. Because, for example, every time there is a question being asked, we need to answer. Either it is answerable by yes or no, or even if that is an open-ended question. We need to have feedback. We give comment. We share our ideas. That is feedback. As you can see, there is an environment. Even that is not a direct element of the process of communication, still, environment functions very important. Why? Environment can be a barrier in an effective communication. For example, a noisy environment. A noisy environment can disrupt the communication process. Or even, in a positive note, it can enhance the communication process. For example, you have a very conducive classroom. It will ignite the focus and the interest of the student to listen to the teacher. And that's how important environment in the process of communication. Going back to the channel, last week we already mentioned the different channel or the message channel in the process of communication. We have first the visual channel. It is something what we see. For example, it can be our gesture, our posture, our facial expression. Yes, our facial expression or our gesture can help us to send the message that we deliver more effectively. For example, when you are angry, the tonality of your voice, the pitch of your voice, and even the volume of your voice changes. Your facial expression changes at the same time. In order to inform the person you are talking to that you are angry. Also, we can find that in an email or any mass media. Especially now that we are in the 21st century, you are in the Generation Z, and you engage more on chatting compared to speaking. And sometimes, most of the time, when we type our message, we also accompanied our emojis for us to give emphasis, to not only to make our message more appealing, but that is intentional. So the reader at the other end can interpret our emotions while we are typing that certain message or certain text via online or via Facebook Messenger or even email. That is visual channel. Next, we have this auditory channel. It's something to deal with the audio content. It can be in the actual conversation or face-to-face conversation or even via call, phone calls or video call. That is auditory. As long as it shows an audio content, that is an auditory channel. We have the tactile channel. It is something to deal with our touch and sensation. That sometimes when we speak to someone, we accompany with our or touching them. For example, when we meet and greet with people, we shake hands, right? And that is tactile communication. We also have the combined channel. From the word itself, it is a combination of auditory and visual channel. For example, when we are comforting a friend, we comforted them not only by our words, but also through our actions, just like tapping the shoulder or even hugging them. And that is combined channel. Today, we will be focusing on the methods and how to overcome barriers of communication. So if there is a barrier, there is a solution on how to solve and overcome that. So first, let us focus on the methods to overcome physiological barriers. First, we need to keep in each other's retention and recollection abilities. We need to pay attention during the sharing of information, especially if our seatmates is quite noisy. So we need to pay attention to that, to the speaker, not to our seatmates. Second is to ensure each other's comfort. For example, if in that way you are comfortable when you're listening, so be it. Next is we need to ensure the intactness of our sensory perception. To the limitation of our hearing abilities must keep in mind. So if you have these difficulties in hearing, make sure that during the discussion, for example, you are attending a seminar, do not sit at the back. That is our nature. If you have hearing disabilities, for you to maximize on understanding the message, you need to sit in front so you can hear the message very clearly. Next is active listening. This is a very difficult strategy, the active listening, because we have this lots of factors affecting our focus every time we listen, especially in public, especially in the class, that you are diverse learners and you cannot control the environment because you have different attitude. But at the same time, even we have that concerns and issues in the class, you still educate yourself that you need to listen to the teacher's discussion. You need to listen when somebody's speaking. So there is a clear retention. You need to find time to focus on someone speaking. So there is a clear perception of message. There is a clear retention and interpretation of the message being delivered. Another is information overload must avoid. That is why in every discussion that is why in we have information overload. That is why we need to limit our slide, right? More on improvising our content rather than projecting all the loaded slide. That is information overload. So the purpose of that is for you to focus more, not on reading. That's why as a teacher, I will not highly encourage you to write while I am discussing. For you to focus on me, for you to focus on how I divide and specified each topic for you to understand better. Now we have the methods to overcome environmental barriers. As what I mentioned a while ago, that environment plays a vital role in the process of communication, because that is the environment, that is the place where we take our when we communicate to somebody else, and that is a factor. For example, in the classroom, a good lighting must be ensured to facilitate nonverbal communication, right? In the class, if there is a good lighting, some students or the majority of the student will not ask somebody else that they cannot see the slide, that they can see what is written on the board, because there is a good lighting installed in the classroom. A comfortable sitting arrangement. For you, in your time, you have this autonomy to choose where you want to sit, and that is the practice. But some of the teachers have this classroom management. They have this alphabetical order, or even a boy or girl setting arrangement, in order for them to get rid of those group of students that are talkative, right? So in order for them not to disrupt the entire class, it's the teacher find ways to manage the setting arrangement of the class inside the classroom. So do not question yourself, why is that there are some teachers have this setting arrangement identified already during the first day of classes? That is because they oversee the actual scenarios and situation that may occur during the classroom discussion. The next is the hygienic or odor-free environment. Of course, the smell really affects our focus, right? It can be good smell. If we can smell food, our focus will be disrupted. Or more, if that is a bad odor in the environment, it will affect the focus not only to the listener but also to the speaker as well. So it really matters. So environment really matters in communication. We have here another methods to overcome barriers of communication, focusing on the psychological barriers. Happy and trustworthy manner. If you are positive with yourself, you are trustworthy person, the person you are talking feel comfortable with you, should not harbor negative emotions. That sometimes when I speak, it will affect the tonality of our voice. And that is the good talent between the teacher. You don't know the teacher if they have this problem. They have this personal problem that they are battling for a silent battle. But still, when they are conducting a class, the attitude and the demeanor, the behavior is the same. So do not bring your problem in your class. That is the advice from our superiors keep injecting to us, that whatever problem at home, do not bring it into your class. And even yourself, your faces at in the classroom, you act normal. In the classroom, you talks normal. But we don't know. Nobody knows that at home you have a certain problem. But still, when we communicate, in order for us to have this good and effective communication with other people, we need to establish a trustworthy and happy manner within ourselves. Avoid prejudice, or avoid feeling of prejudice and resentment and antagonism. that most of the time, or I think that is normal case, that we find fault rather than we compliment small achievement, right? If we act antagonist every time to somebody who speaks, there is no positive implication with that communication. Kay kalaban, that is antagonist. So that is why we need to avoid that. By that, we need to have the open mind to embrace whatever ideas and opinions because we are entitled to do that. We are in a democratic country, not to the extent that we are judging and name dropping somebody else of doing negative things without evidence. So that is a big no. But in order for us to have this effective communication, we need to avoid the feeling of prejudicing and resentment and antagonizing anybody. Another methods to overcome is free from fear, anxiety, or confusion. Sometimes, especially with regards to the English language, we are afraid to speak the language because we are afraid that we are being judged by someone who hears us. Again, I keep on repeating this one. Practice makes almost perfect. If our goal is to enhance our communication in English, we need to speak the language. Remember that we are in the oral communication in context. So we are using the English language. Yes, it is true that English is not a measurement for our intelligence, but it is a prerequisite because that is the universal language. It is the common language spoken by the majority of people all around the globe. When you are seeking for a job, the job interview, the means of communication is English. So we need to cut that fear, to cut that anxiety for us to mispronounce the English word because that is normal. As Filipino, we are dealing with that problem because of our own dialect. But yes, as what I mentioned, we can start building our confidence if we are utilizing the language. And we can do that here at school. And no other areas, no other places that you find time comfortable with yourself practicing the language is the school. There is no judgment. At least you tried. At least you sounded like not an awkward student trying to speak in English. Because this is an oracle. So if you embrace the change, if you embrace that confidence to cut that fear, you can slowly transform yourself to be good and fluent speaking the English language. These are the methods to overcome the social barriers. The difference in social norms, values, and behavior must be given consideration. Social belief must be kept in mind. For example, if you are speaking in a group of people with different beliefs, with different ideas, because they belong in other social norms, so you must consider and keep that in mind. We have the methods to overcome cultural barriers. Consider the cultural differences. We are not the same. We have this freedom of religion as well, culture. Sometimes our yes is a no. Sometimes what good to us is not that good to other people because of the culture. Because we have different traditions. We have different values and behavior. So you must consider that one. So the main goal or the core values to this is you need to be open-minded. You need to embrace that we are diverse as a human being. Next is we have the methods to overcome semantic barriers. Semantic barriers, for you to address that, you need to use the same language. You need to consider the difference in the expression and the perception of message. For example, if you are talking with a younger audience, you need to use a simplified words in order for them to understand you. Do not use vague or difficult word just for you to make or sounded like a smart one. You need to consider your audience when you are talking. So if it's a younger audience, you need to use a simple words. If it's older audience or an audience composed of elderly, you need to slower your voice. You need to slower your pacing when you communicate in order for them to comprehend and to get the message that you are going to deliver. That is how we overcome the semantic barriers. Methods to overcome organizational barriers. First is consider the organizational policy, rules, and regulations. Second is organization structure must be simple and non-complex. Third is the large organization must be divided into smaller subset. In an organization, we are abiding with the rules and regulations. So as a speaker, as the sender of the message or the receiver of the message, you must adhere to that policy, to that rules and regulations. So there is no barrier between you and the organization and even your colleagues. You need also to use a simple structure in order to understand. So there is the understanding of the general audience. And if ever that organization is big and large, you must divide into a smaller group or subset, just like classroom sectioning. Can you imagine if we have this only one section for the rest of the grade 11 students? What happens? Oh, there is no effective classroom instruction or discussion because you're too many. So we need to divide the class into 2 or 3 sections in order for the teachers to still deliver the lessons effectively, and also for you students to receive the inputs more effectively because you are manageable when it comes to number of students. Methods to overcome communication process related barriers. An appropriate channel must be used. What do you mean by appropriate? That is the correct channel. Again, we have the auditory, the visual, the tactile, the combined channel. When we communicate, we must consider what is the appropriate channel that I'm going to use as a speaker in order for me to deliver the message or the content of my message or speech. I need to acknowledge what is the correct and appropriate channel that I will be using. Next is a stereotypical approach must be avoided in communication. Stereotypical approach is just like informal, that is the normal. What is common must be avoided in communication, especially in the class. That is why teachers always adhere to be more creative, rather than it is a monotonous approach. We have this discussion, and at the same time, in the middle of the discussion, we ask ideas, we ask opinions from you, from the students. in order to build and to make the class more interactive rather than to make it more like a monotonous or robotic flow of discussion. So do not be confused. Why is that at the middle of the discussion we ask ideas from you, we solicit ideas from our students? That is because for us to make the class discussion effective and interactive, the message must be clear and non-conflicting. The message must be direct and clear. So if, for example, if you want your teacher to assist you, just tell your teacher, I need assistance to understand the lesson. Not say that I don't understand. Oh, that is incomplete. There is no clear message to that line. In order for you to deliver a clear message, you must be more specific. You need to tell your teacher, I need assistance. It sounds confusing. I need assistance for you to understand. You need to tell your teacher, I need your assistance for me to understand our lesson. And that is a direct, that is a clear, non-conflicting delivery of message. We have proper feedback must be ensured by the recipient. For example, as a teacher, if I ask my students about a certain topic, have you noticed that even the answer is not correct or it's beyond the question, out of the box, just like that? We will not say that your answer is wrong. Have you noticed? Why? Because we highly encourage your participation. And there is the wrong opinion. We encourage everybody to participate. And we are thankful for those students who shared their ideas and knowledge. We give feedback. We give rewards and positive feedback. Just like, thank you for your ideas. I need more ideas. That is the pattern that we follow because we are teachers. Or even or even at home, when you are young, when you have a conversation with your parents, if you said something wrong, your parents will correct you ahead of time, especially if you are talking a bad language, bad words. Okay, we are done with the barriers. We are done with the methods on how to overcome the barriers of communication. Now we need to focus on the techniques of effective communication because we are here to practice. You send yourself at school because you want to learn something from us. So first, let's focus on the techniques of effective communication for conversational skills. The most difficult, I keep on saying this one, when you want to develop the skills in communicating and mastering the English language, the most difficult one is conversational English. But if we try to mirror that in our actual setup, in our daily living, that is easy because that is the time that we make marites, chismis, chica, something like that. When we buy something from the store, that is conversational. When we ride a motorcycle, when we ride a bus, then we meet our friends or classmates or our batchmate, something like that. That is conversational English. So that is difficult with regard to the English language. But there are techniques for us to enhance that skills so we can be good at that slowly, step by step. One is focusing. You need to focus on the topic that being raised. Next is Paraphrasing. Paraphrase means you need to elongate your ideas. You need to prolong your ideas, right? Do not limit to the yes or no, then because, then and. Something like that pattern. For you to paraphrase, you need to study and master what are the transitional words that you can use in order for you to elongate your response and feedback to a certain question. Next is sharing information. Sharing information is important in communication because when you have this information, meaning to say, it will develop and expand your knowledge to a certain topic. Next is providing information. Providing information, you are not just educating the audience, you are not educating the person you are speaking with, but at the same time, you are feeding as the referent of that communication process to make that communication full of knowledge, full of interest, or full of content. That is providing information. Next is asking relevant questions. Not to the extent that you want to elongate your conversation, you need to ask any questions. If you know already the answer, do not ask the questions. There is no sense. So you need to ask the relevant question with a question that really matters during the communication process. Next is clarifying and summarizing. This is the case that every student tend to neglect. When a teacher at the end of the class discussion asks you, do you understand the lesson? Do not answer yes if you don't understand. The teacher can review again. The teacher can revisit the topic again for you to understand. If you have question, if the teacher is clarifying, is there any question? Do not answer none if you have an answered question, right? You need to be true to yourself because that is the job of the teacher, for you to understand the certain topic. And also, not only to the teacher, to the person you're speaking with. For example, kung magbinisaya ko, pagsubuon ka sa iyong mama, if you don't hear and you don't understand, ayaw pagpiniling nga nakasabot ka kay the end of the day, ang gisugo sa imong mama, lahi ang imong gidala because you are not clarifying. That is the purpose of why we need to clarify something. Next is to share some humor. Sharing humor to a conversation not only ignites the interest, not only ignites the ambience of communication, but also it will add flavor to the communication. That is why sometimes teachers inputs jokes, integrate jokes, love story, it can be a form of a song or anything, in order for us to break the monotony of the classroom discussion. So we need to add flavor, we need to strategize by injecting some humor during our class discussion. Another techniques of effective communication focusing on listening skills. We have active listening. Active listening is not only showcasing your physical attributes through gesture, but also you are disregarding all that factors besides you, just like your talkative seatmates, just like the text. That is why there is a memorandum from the Department of Education prohibiting the usage of mobile device inside the class in order to have the active listening within the class. Next is using silence. Silence not also means yes. Silence not also means you don't understand. Silence expands the horizon of effective communication because there is no interruption. That is why silence really matters. For example, when you are in the library, right? No one is allowed to speak loudly because the purpose there is for you to get a knowledge from what you read or online or in books or any printed materials. So that is why the teachers will have this authority to instruct the class to be silent during the classroom discussion in order to focus on the lesson. Next is acknowledgement of message. You need to acknowledge the message. You need to respect the opinion. You need to consider who is talking. Just like ask if you observe. You say thank you for your opinion. Okay, any ideas? Thank you so much for your ideas. That is very good. That is good. That is true. That is correct. No, that is not the reality or something like that. So you need to acknowledge the message in order for you to show that you are listening. Even when you nod, when the class advisor or the teacher have this lesson and for you you think you agree to something, you nod. I can see that. I can observe that. Meaning to say, you understand the lesson. You comprehend the message or the content of that topic. Next is to give feedback. Of course, it is good if you give feedback. When somebody is talking to you, you need to respond because you are not a rock. You're a human being. We need to respond. Whether you agree or you disagree to something, you need to respond to that person talking to you. Another techniques of effective communication for technical skills, using touch. When you meet somebody, you cannot shake hands. That is effective communication that you are very grateful to meet him or her. When you have this pagmamano, right? The culture of the Filipino values. Huwag ka nang mag-amin. That is an indication that you respect the elderly of their presence. That is using touch. Another is using nonverbal cues, just like gesture, just like nodding, just like thumbs up, thumbs down if you disagree to something. That is nonverbal cues. Sharing feeling, meaning to say you need to empathize. So if there is a problem with your classmate, when you speak, you need to show empathy. Next is sharing observations. If you observe something, you can tell the one you're speaking with that you observe something good or bad. Next is sharing hope. Sharing hope is you need to be good at all costs. You need to radiate the positive vibes that there is hope in everything. Whether in the academic realm or whether in your personal life, you need to impose that sense of hope to something you are talking with. Next is presenting reality. Some of us, we sugarcoat what we said, right? Some of us, we are not direct because we are afraid that we offend somebody else. But a good friend is a friend who is frank, and that is true. Your friend tell you bad words. That is a true friend. It is good if you are going to present what is reality rather than to conceal the truth behind your sugar-coated words. Next is, again, to share empathy. When we speak, we need to have that emotions. We need to speak from the heart. So therefore, it will radiate not only to our voice, but also to our facial expression. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this video will help you understand the process of communication. Again, I will repeat. Next meeting, we will have our first assessment quiz. And if you find time, if you have difficulties to understand, you can easily visit this video recorded lesson, and at the same time I will share my slides so you can easily access and review our lesson. Once again, thank you so much. This is your teacher Ralphie. Have a good day.